what did you see in the beginning of the video where the people were walking? What were they carrying? An umbrella. The dude survived because he was soaking wet. You can't tell in the video, but it's pouring down rain. Okay, so water is a conductor of electricity, right? So when he's soaking wet and the electricity hits him, it basically rides the water out around his body and goes to the ground and is actually grounded. Okay, so the electricity never passed through his heart. It never defibed him, right? Never went past through his heart. Never shocked him. Okay, so what is lightning? Static electricity, right? It comes from the sky, static, boom, grounds down to the ground. The ground. But essentially the circuit's being complete to the power station that's creating the power out there, but it all comes down into the ground. So when you stick your fingers in there and you're standing on the ground, it's going directly to the ground. Okay, electricity wants to complete its circuit, go back to where it came from, go to its ground. Okay, it doesn't just go off into a path. 7th grade technology class or whatever it was, you build circuits with capacitors and all that stuff. Electricity wants to go back to where it's at. So depending on where it's grounded, that's going to have a lot to play. So some things we're going to talk about is the basic anatomy of the electric and hybrid vehicles, the similarities and differences between the two of them, and what you need to know. High voltage versus low voltage, what that means to you on an accident, how you're going to get around it, all kinds of stuff. Hybrid electric identification, how do you know that the vehicle is an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle or a gasoline or diesel or whatnot? We're going to talk about that. And then this is the big one. This is the part where you're going to want to wake up. Safety procedures on an incident involving electric and hybrid vehicles specifically. Okay? We want to keep our guys safe out there, make sure everybody goes home. And then we're going to talk about some common myths related to electric and hybrid vehicles. So this is a basic layout schematic of a hybrid propulsion system. Okay? You got your battery there, orange plug. Does anybody know what the orange plug is for? You guys ever heard of the orange plug before in an electric or a hybrid vehicle? What it's used for? Okay. So what that is there's this little plug, and you'll see a couple pictures of it, and then it's definitely in a video I'm going to show you towards the end. It de-energizes the whole system. Okay. That is for maintenance only. That's for mechanics. We don't care about it. Don't go looking for it. Good luck finding it. It's tucked away and usually behind some panels and stuff like that. So, but that's a part of every system. So the power comes out of the battery in DC. Everybody know what DC is? Direct current. Okay. It comes out in DC, goes into your inverter converter, which then turns it into AC, alternating current, comes out into your traction motor, and then the traction motor is connected to the engine. When I refer to motor, I'm referring to an electric motor for this presentation. In this world, a motor is an electric motor, and an engine is your gasoline engine, your diesel engine, or known as an ICE, internal combustion engine. Okay, so when you hear me talk about motor, then we're talking about an electric motor specifically. And then you have a 12 volt. You have to have a 12 volt in order for the system to run, okay? All right, so this is a little bit more realistic look at a hybrid, okay? Again, you have your battery, your DC going into your inverter converter, comes out, goes into your high voltage motor slash generator, which is connected to your engine, and then you have your fuel tank that's connected to your engine there, and then depending on what vehicle and how they have it set, you match the accelerator, what's going to take over, whether it's going to be the electric motor or the engine, but that's basically what it's going to look like. Do you think that the batteries for these are all in the same place in every single car? No. Okay. They're all over the place. So are the engines and how they're turned and all that stuff. So just a basic look of what it's going to look like. But the reason I put this up here is because this is basically what an electric car that you see driving around is components. There is nothing to it. You have a battery, you have your wires going to your rotor, and then your drive system. That is it. There's no transmission, there's no cooling system, there's none of that stuff. That's all gone. Okay? This is basically what it looks like. All right? So here's a little schematic of it. You got your lithium-ion battery, your orange plug again, for maintenance only, DC out, and the inverter converter out to the traction motor. You have to have a 12 volt to operate the system, and also operate your accessory type stuff as well. Okay? Very simple, very basic, down and dirty. These things are clean. There's no maintenance to them. You don't have to change oil. You don't have to flush your transmission, all that stuff. So very clean, very simple. So the battery packs in both the hybrids and electric vehicles, it's not one giant battery. It's a series of smaller batteries that are put together to create different varying ranges of voltage depending on the model that you bought, how much you paid for it, and all that stuff. So it comes out, inverter, converter, goes right directly to the high voltage motor generator, and you have your 12 volt battery that operates the system and shut it off. The reason in this one that they show the brakes is because in a lot of electric vehicles and some of the hybrids, they have what they call regenerative braking. As you hit the brakes, it creates power and sends it back to the battery to increase the distance range of the vehicle, okay? Here's a basic cutaway of some kind of car, okay? You got your battery packs here. There's your inverter, converter. It's kind of hard to see, but down here is your motor. Does anybody know what the orange cable's for? Well, it's for your high voltage. Okay, so this is an all electric vehicle. That's basically every component is a component to it. Do you guys have any idea when the first electric vehicle was produced? Any clue? Idea? In the 60s? 1860s or 1960s?
I was going to say
1960s. It was actually like 1896. Okay, so the technology has not changed very much. The battery technology has changed, but the actual technology of the electric motor and all that stuff hasn't changed very much. So there's some conspiracy theories out there about the electric cars and how they came out. So in 1896, the first one was produced. They kind of started producing them in the early 1900s. The conspiracy is that the oil companies bought out the patent, and it was a 100-year patent on the electric vehicle. Kind of weird, right? Because in the late 90s is when you first started seeing electric vehicles coming out. City of Glendale leased two of the first ones that came out in it was like the mid to late 90s. It was a program that GM ran, and it was you could not purchase the vehicle. They were lease only, and in the small print of the lease it said that they could be repossessed at any time. So there was I don't even know how many of these cars that were out there, and, but they had them out, and all in one day they went and repoed like 70% of them. And there's a documentary on Netflix you can see. I think it's still on Netflix. It's called "Who Killed the Electric Car." They got aerial footage of car haulers taking these cars, and they're driving out in the middle of the desert in the middle of the night. They're just disappearing. So some crazy stuff that goes along with it. But those cars were kind of the first ones to hit the market where people saw an electric vehicle out there. City of Glendale, again, they leased two of them. There's not many of them in existence. They destroyed nearly all of them. There's a couple of them out there that are some very rich guys, personal collections that are car collectors and stuff like that you can see them, but they don't exist anymore. So this is not new technology. So this is a Tesla, and the reason you can tell that it's a Tesla is because Tesla has a patent on underneath the floor pan of this vehicle is the battery pack. It bolts up underneath the car. Okay, so Tesla actually, when they first started coming out and they started talking about increasing range and all that stuff, they were having their biggest complaint was that you have like the blink chargers and stuff that are out there. Okay, those are like a 440, right? You got in your house, you got a 110, a 220. They're like a 440. The problem with it is that if it's like less than 10% battery charge left in the car and you hook that in, it takes 45 minutes to get to 80% charge. So you don't even get a full charge out of it. And the reason for that is the heat that's generated while it's charging. Same principle as like our SCBA bottles. When you fill them really fast, it creates heat. Once it cools down, your PSI goes down. Same principle. So what Tesla did a little test market on that I don't think ever really worked out was quick change battery stations. And they were going to put a couple of them across the 10 and the 40 and some of the major thoroughways across the country. You pull in, they lift your car up, they unbolt the battery from the bottom, drop it, put a full 100% charged battery in it, and you're on your way in 10, 15 minutes. Didn't really take off. So the biggest problem with these is battery life as far as range is concerned. Okay, some of them are now to they say 400-mile range, whatnot. It just depends on the battery packs. If you look back there, there's your motor. This is actually a dual motor system in the back of the Tesla on this one. And you can see they don't look much different than the ones that are in your RC cars. Okay, they're extremely powerful, they're extremely efficient, they're insane. These things. So let's talk about high voltage. High voltage is what actually operates the propulsion system of the vehicle, okay? That's what pushes the vehicle forward when you hit the accelerator. There's varying voltage. We talked about that a little bit. So depending on the type of car you get and the options and how many motors you have and battery packs and all that stuff, the average that's out there right now is in between 200 and 350 volts. Some of the Teslas have close to 900, 800 volts that are going to them, okay? Orange color cables, high voltage, that's what the orange color cable is. Okay, if you see orange color cable on a car, it is high voltage, that's what that means. Okay? The high voltage is grounded within the vehicle. Okay? It's not grounded to the ground, it's not grounded to the sky or the table or anything else. The high voltage is grounded within the vehicle. And actually in the high voltage cables, they have built-in safety features within the cables. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. So wiring color, we talked about your high voltage is going to be in orange color. So what determines high voltage is more than 60 volts and greater than 1 amp. So if it is more than 60 volts and greater than 1 amp, it absolutely has to be in an orange color cable. Okay, that's determined by some national traffic safety bunch of letters agency. It absolutely has to be in orange. Okay. Any other circuit, any other 12 volt, it's less than this. It can be any other color. If you've ever tried to rewire your stereo, your tail lights, anything else like that, there's a ton of different colors that are out there. There's orange with the purple stripe, and brown with the yellow stripe, and there's 100 different color combinations. But straight up orange, that means high voltage. So this is a cutaway of what high voltage cable looks like. On the outside, you have the outer insulation, okay? And then you guys see this little silver lining on the inside? That's actually 12 volt line. It's like a web of 12 volt. It's created for basically like a GFI. So if that is crushed, starts to get cut, starts to get torn, wet, anything, it shuts the entire system down. Okay, so the minute you start to penetrate that, cut it, do anything, squeeze it to a certain point, it's going to shut the entire system down. Then you have your inner insulation, and then you have the cable that's going to run the high voltage. That's what you're going to see. You're probably not going to see orange if you get up underneath of a car or you start to cut a car across the rocker panel or an A-post or something like that. They're usually in a housing, a clear white housing that's going to run along the length of the car. You generally won't see orange until you get closer to the battery pack or closer to the motor, okay, towards the power plant. And this is what it's going to look like. This is your housing. So high voltage, low voltage, okay? But this is typically what you're going to see in that housing. If you're cutting on a car's torn apart, whatnot, unless you're close to the engine or the motor or the battery, you're going to see some sort of a housing. Low voltage. The low voltage operates every accessory in your vehicle, your headlights, your radio, everything else. It also operates the system to engage the high voltage, okay? And the 12 volt battery, your standard battery that's in your car. You pick it up at AutoZone, O'Reilly's, wherever, that's just a standard lead acid battery. Again, your low voltage is also grounded within the vehicle. It's not grounded to the ground like your house or anything else, it's grounded within the vehicle. And then like I said, 12 volt must be operational for the propulsion system to work to high voltage, right? And then it also operates the airbags. And then talk about locations of batteries. I mean, how many locations of the 12 volt battery are there in cars out there now? They are all over the place. They're in the front, they're in the back, they're in the trunk, they're underneath the seat, they got a panel that pulls up off the floorboard, and they got a little thing in there, they're all over the place. But we'll talk about finding them, and if you can't find them, what to do. That's what it looks like, okay? If you guys were gonna cut a battery cable, say you're on an accident and you need to cut the battery cable, are you going to cut the positive or the negative first? My official response is I don't really care, because at the end of the day, take what it gives you. Because if the car is mangled up and you can't see the negative and you can only see the positive, cut the positive. You can only see the negative, vice versa, whatever. The only thing I caution you on is be careful, because if you go to NFPA's website and try and find out what NFPA says that you're supposed to cut first, there's a freaking discussion board that's 3 miles long about why you cut this and that and whatever, and arcing with your tool and all that stuff. be a professional, cut your 4-inch section out of it so you don't get real memory and it doesn't go back and re-energize the car, okay? Because you're not always gonna have the positive, you're not always gonna have the negative. You might not even see the battery, you know, you gotta cut something else. So let's talk about hybrid and electric vehicle identification. How do you guys know, if you guys were to go on a 962 right now, how do you know if it's a hybrid or electric vehicle? You know, badging, right? It's gonna say on the corner of the car, right? It's gonna tell you, hey, this is a hybrid. Manufacturers, because there's only a certain amount of manufacturers that make hybrid and electric vehicles, right? You got a pretty good idea what they are. Vehicle characteristics. Color of the vehicle. Is a certain color scheme on a vehicle going to tell you if it's an electric or a hybrid? No? I know one car that has an electric blue stripe on the car. I don't care if you order it in purple. BMW.
That's their series?
Their i8. It's got an electric blue in the front and the back of the car. It's got an electric blue line on it. And then vehicle knowledge. Okay, this is the one that's going to get us in trouble. Is because we're firemen, we know everything, we know it all, right? Hey, I'm a car guy, I know that that's not a hybrid, that's not an electric vehicle, we're good. Okay? Is that a hybrid? Yes. Yeah, it's a hybrid, right? Okay. Badging. There's a green leaf. Yeah, green leaf, right? Oh yeah, so it's a hybrid, right? You just follow the little path, little road, go up to leaf heaven, you're good, right? You're environmentally nice. E-drive. That's probably an electric vehicle, right? So, if a car's in an accident, can they replace these badges? When he goes to the body shop, can they call up the manufacturer and say, hey, I need another E-drive badge? Yeah, they can get them, right? So, you can get them. Can you get these things on eBay? Amazon? Yeah, probably, right? Guarantee you probably can. Would somebody put one of these badges on their car if it's not a hybrid or electric vehicle?
HOV, yeah.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely they would do that. We got guys that will build spoilers out of 2x4s and plywood. People will put hybrid and electric vehicle badging on there. Here's the other problem. Okay, we'll just say that this is E-Drive badging, right? It was on the trunk lid, the rear of the vehicle. Okay, that thing rolls over 6 times. You get there, it's a crumpled mess. Where's that badge? It's 50 feet away. You have no idea. No clue, right? So don't rely solely on your badging. Manufacturers. We talked about it. There's only a few of them out there we know it. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, okay? Right? Got the little blue thing in there. Ford's got a Fusion. Little Fiesta, we got a couple of them out there. Uh-oh, Porsche. Porsche actually makes one of the baddest electric vehicles out there, okay? Part of, if you purchase one of their, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, if you purchase one of Porsche's electric vehicles, the high-end one, it's like in the neighborhood of $250,000. It's insane. But part of the program is with that purchase price of the vehicle, they fly you to Germany once your car's done, and you go through a 2-week driving course on how to operate the vehicle, and you have to show proficiency in order to operate the vehicle. You don't show proficiency, they hand you your money back, drive you to the airport, and send you home without your car. So type of vehicle, right? We talked about vehicle characteristics, type of vehicle. They only certain kinds of vehicles come in hybrid or electric. Is there a Silverado that's out there that's a hybrid or electric? Yep, absolutely. City buses, electric, hybrids, both out there, CNG, all that stuff. And you got your run-of-the-mill, yeah, that's definitely a hybrid, right? Mass transit, light rail type systems, can they be electric, hybrid, right? Uh-oh, what about that guy? That's a legitimate, bona fide 100% race car. Top speed at 260 some miles an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid. They have a whole series for these cars. They have a whole racing series for hybrid cars. It's insane. So, what about heavy equipment? Any of those operate with electric or hybrid? So, yes. Actually, Cat and John Deere are 2 of the major manufacturers of them. The propulsion system for the vehicle that makes it go forward and backward is actually electric. Diesel operates the hydraulic system. So All of these, everything that's out there. Okay, so at the end of the day, you're not going to know if it's an electric or a hybrid vehicle. Okay, we're going to get into it. And we're going to treat every vehicle the same. Color. Talked about color. Anybody know what kind of vehicle that is? Range Rover. Gets you range, right? So, do you know why they color it like that? Why they wrap it like that?
They're trying to hide it.
They're trying to hide it. Okay, this is a new model that's not out yet, and it's not for people to walk up on it and go, "Hey, I don't know that that's a Range Rover." It's for other companies doing aerial reconnaissance over their proving grounds and stuff like that. Which, dude, the auto industry is cutthroat. I mean, just like most of the industries out there, but they're cutthroat, so they do all kinds of stuff. But color of vehicle, vehicle knowledge. We talked about it. You might think, hey, there's no way that this could be a hybrid or electric vehicle. You might think, oh yeah, I guarantee you this is an electric hybrid vehicle. Vice versa. There's a lot of guys in the job that know a lot about cars. There's guys that know a lot more about cars than I know about cars and all that stuff. Don't let your knowledge get you in trouble where you think you know something, okay? We're going to treat every vehicle the same every time, regardless of the kind of car, the manufacturer, color, doesn't matter, okay? I don't care if it's a purple little sedan on spinners, it doesn't matter. We're going to treat them all the same. What kind of car is that? Hybrid, electric, jacked up, that's what it is. Alright? Just talking about you roll up on these things, sometimes you're not going to be able to tell. What kind of car is that? Transformer, right? Absolutely, 100%. This goes back to the badging. People put stuff on their cars for any reason. It doesn't matter. So your badging, your color, your vehicle characteristics, the type of vehicle, the manufacturer, all those, it's not going to matter. At the end of the day, when you get off the fire truck and you go on an accident, we're going to treat every vehicle the same, every single time. Okay? So here's the nuts and bolts. We're going to talk about approach tactics, and we're going to throw a couple little curveballs in there for some different stuff. We're going to treat every vehicle the same every single time, regardless if it's hybrid, electric, gas, doesn't matter, every single time. Okay? We're going to assume every vehicle has 16 airbags. I usually like to use 72 when I'm talking to probationary guys or teaching this class, but there's airbags everywhere. Does anybody know what SRS stands for? You see it on your dash, you see it on your steering wheel. You know it's for an airbag, but what does SRS actually stand for?
Safety restraining system?
Close. Supplemental restraining system. Airbags are a secondary method of restraint. Your seatbelt is primary. So that's why it's a supplemental, not a safety. It's because it's actually secondary to your seatbelt. Okay? You're going to assume every vehicle involved in an NBA, fire, whatever, has HIDs. Does anybody know what an HID is? High intensity discharge. Headlights, right? Okay? So HIDs is fairly new. They've been out for probably 7 years. They were uncommon and super expensive, like everything else when they first come out. Now they're very common. They come in most new vehicles. You got HIDs in a night, right? Yeah. So they come in new vehicles, and then you also can retrofit them into older vehicles. My 2011 Silverado that did not come with HIDs has HIDs in both the headlights and the fog lights. They're awesome. If you have them, you'll never want to go back because the way that they light things up, they're crystal clear. You get long range with them, and you get width with them, and it just brightens everything up. You guys remember the blue blocker commercials back in the day where it was like, oh, it's kind of, whatever you put your blue blockers on, just crispens everything up, and everything. It's like driving with blue blockers. That's essentially kind of what it is, right? Does anybody know how an HID headlight works? If you were to go change your headlight in a normal car, you pull the bulb out of the housing, it's got wires that come to it, and it goes into the brain, or not the brain, like the fuses and all that stuff, and gets input in the electrical system. So when you pull your headlight switch or whatever, the headlights come on. With HIDs, that headlight, it goes into the housing. The wiring goes into the box like Eric's talking about, and it's called a ballast. So the power that comes from the 12 volt goes into this ballast, and then it increases the voltage to it. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25,000 volts. And then it goes back out into the light. It is not a filament. The headlight is not like a traditional filament. The old school incandescent, and then you even have your halogen and all that stuff, they all still have a filament. The HIDs do not have a filament. They have basically a piece of metal that comes in and then it creates an arc. The high voltage creates an arc. Depending on the voltage and how they do it, gives a different color variation, going from really yellow all the way to very purple and then everything in between. Like mine have a slight blue tint, or yours are probably factory, right? So they're pretty white. Yeah, so it's white. So, but it's basically a welding arc. You're basically driving with the light of a welding arc is essentially what it is. So don't get any body areas close to the headlights before you disconnect the 12 volts. Okay, because when the 12 volts engaged, headlights are still engaged. Power down procedures. Okay, this is most of the top side of this we do on a daily basis, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. So 360-degree inspection from a safe distance, check underneath the vehicle, make sure there's no babies or people or debris, anything that's going to hurt you, power poles, any of that stuff, and then immobilize the vehicle if need be by putting a wheel chock down, doing something like that. And be aware of the silent running hazard, because when a hybrid or electric vehicle is on, in drive, ready to go, you have no idea standing outside the vehicle. Okay? So this procedure number one is going to be if you have the ability to observe the dash. It's not a major accident, it's probably a BLS 962 ability to observe the dash. When you look at the dash of these cars, the first thing you're going to do is not stick your head in the vehicle. Okay? Don't go, I'm going to look at the dash and put your head in the vehicle. Okay? Because now you just put your head in between the B post and the A post, that vehicle takes off, your head's going with it. Get a look from the outside, check on the dash, look for a tachometer. There's going to be a system light on there that's going to tell you whether it's in like ignition, on, or run, and that's either going to be on the dash or on a push button because they have a key fob. Okay, they don't have a traditional key. See what you can see. Make sure that the vehicle's in park. Turn the vehicle off. If the vehicle is running, put it in park, turn it off, whatnot. There are some people out there that think with the key fobs that you got to wrap it in tinfoil and throw it more than 50 feet away from the vehicle for it not to work. That's not true. Don't worry about it. Just shut the vehicle off. Okay. Turn off the ignition, and then you confirm that the illumination lights are off. Turn the headlights off if need be, and then turn the hazard lights on. That's going to be if you're going to disconnect a 12-volt battery. Not all 962s do we need to disconnect a 12-volt battery, right? It's probably drivable, something like that. You don't need to disconnect it. But if you're going to disconnect a 12-volt battery, make sure you turn the hazard lights on because that's going to confirm whether that 12-volt, the system has been disconnected or not. Okay, it's just like when we go into a house fire, and I've done it, where you're in a house and you're in the kitchen, you're fighting fire, and you hear over the radio, hey, utilities are secured. And then all of a sudden you look over and the Christmas tree and the TV is still on. What happened? They have a secondary box somewhere that may or may not be up to code and whatnot. So your hazard lights run through the main system of the vehicle. There's vehicles out there that have extra 12 volts for stereo systems, different power setups, generators, different things in our vehicle. Okay. Confirm the headlights are off, all that stuff, or headlights are off. So when you shut down the car, the 12-volt system is the key to this whole thing. Okay? If you don't need to cut the 12-volt, don't cut the 12-volt. But if you disconnect the 12-volt by shutting the vehicle down, putting it in park, it eliminates 99% of your hazards. Okay? The airbags won't deploy, the car won't drive, it's not going to go anywhere, all that. So the HIDs are not going to operate, headlights, all that stuff. If you take that 12-volt out of the system, you got 99% of your problems handled. So the big reason power down procedure number one is geared towards kind of your BLS 962 if you can see the dash when you get off the fire truck. The reason that this is so important is because firefighters have been hurt and or killed because of not doing this type of stuff. There was fire department, I think it was outside of Sacramento, where they had a little rear end accident, boom, boom, little 3-car pileup, lady in the middle, complaining of neck pain. Firefighter gets in the back, he's holding C-spine, the car that was in front moved out of the way, lady's husband, I guess, showed up or something, is what the story is. Anyway, there's a firefighter that's looking underneath the front of the vehicle to see if the balance is hanging or whatnot, if she can drive it. They start to put the seat collar on her, she freaks out, mashes the accelerator, runs the firefighter over, kills him, drives off with the firefighter in the back, critically injuring both of them. This is a BLS 962, you know, no, not a big thing, Jacoby and Myers deal, right? So we need to be doing this on all vehicles because we can't tell if they're running, we can't tell if they're hybrids, we can't whatever. power the car down. Put it in park, turn the car off, okay? And then if you need to extricate, pop the door, or whatever, go ahead with your extrication procedures. Power down procedure number 2 is basically the same thing, but this is geared more towards a major accident with your extrication and you can't observe the dash. So you're going to do the same thing, your 360, make sure the vehicle's not moving, all that stuff, and you can't observe the dash. So make sure if you can see if the vehicle's here running or not, don't worry about it, just keep going. And then you initiate your patient contact. Again, don't stick your head inside of these vehicles until you know. If all 4 wheels are bent and broken off and the A-frames are sitting over in the QC parking lot, you know, and you're in the middle of 6-7 in Glendale, the car's probably not going anywhere. Use common sense when it comes to this stuff. But once you initiate that, then somebody's going to locate and disconnect the 12 volt. Whether that means cutting it, taking the battery out, pulling it, however it is, you're going to disconnect the 12 volt. So once you disconnect it, you shut the whole system down. You relieve 99% of your problems, right? So again, we talked about battery locations. Batteries are everywhere in vehicles. What are you going to cut if you can't find the actual battery? What's your next thing that you're going to go to try and cut? Cable or otherwise, electrical to shut the system down.
ECU.
The ECU, okay, pretty good. A lot of the ECUs are internal in the car somewhere. They're probably up underneath the dash or underneath the seat or something like that. The fuse block. Most of your fuse blocks are going to be underneath the hood or in the engine compartment, whether it's in the front or the back. The fuse block is going to be in there. Same thing, red power cable coming in the fuse block. If you cut the power to the fuse block, you cut the power to the entire vehicle. If you guys have ever had a blinker go out or your car's not starting or whatever, you got to check the fuses, right? Because they all have fusible links to them. Boom, 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 boom. So if you cut the power to the fuse block, all of it's going to go away. Okay. So the fuse block is the big one. And then you can take the fuse block out, cut the fuse block, all that stuff. Again, you want to confirm that your power is down by the hazard lights. Okay. Make sure that you push the little button. It's either on top of the steering column or it's inside on the console next to the Navi system or something like that. And then you continue with your extrication process. If you guys literally take nothing away from this, when you get off the fire truck on the 962, make sure the vehicle is apart and make sure the vehicle is off. That's the big thing, because I don't want anybody getting hurt because you got off and it was a hybrid and nobody knew it was running and they take off. We've all been on these calls, and shortly after I started going to these classes and symposiums and all this stuff and everything, every time I got off the fire truck, while I'm doing my triage, you know, I'm looking inside the car. And you would be amazed at how many times, and watch, when you start doing it on the regular, and every single accident you go onto, you will be surprised at how many cars are in drive and the vehicle's still running. So the other side of this is you got to think about how we operate on a daily basis. When we go on a 962, rear end, you go pulling up, what do we do with our fire truck? How do we park our fire truck, Steve?
Make it safe for us on scene.
Right, you're gonna come up behind the scene, angle your truck, take up the lane that it's occupying, and the lane next to it, protect the scene, right? So the theory behind it is if the car hits, it's gonna shield off and go to the outside, right? So you have your truck here, then the accident's here, then hopefully, God willing, if the ambulance shows up and they know what they're doing, where are they parking? On the other side of the accident, right? Because now they have the truck and the accident blocking them from potential traffic. It's a 962. Where are we all standing when we're giving a report and we're getting ready to send them to the hospital? We're standing between the ambulance, at the back door of the ambulance, and the accident. And did anybody check to make sure the vehicle was off? Make sure it was apart? You know, if you did, what can happen? Who's getting inside those cars? Well, we're all dealing with the patient, getting ready to transfer care, go to the hospital, do whatever we're going to do. Who's getting in the vehicles? PD, family, whatever, friends, all that stuff. That aren't going to check to see if the vehicle's in park and the vehicle's not running. They're looking in the dashboard, they're in there milling around looking for the cell phone that fell on the floor or whatever, and they accidentally hit the accelerator. Guess what? That car's now going into the back of all of us standing there by the ambulance and into the ambulance. Okay? Don't let that happen. It takes a quick second. Medics, when you're doing your triage, just take a quick look, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, hi, Ryan, you have any problems? Yeah, your neck problem? Turn it off, put it in park. If not, grab a wheel truck off if you can't really get to it right quick, grab a wheel truck off the truck and put it down. No reason why we shouldn't be doing this stuff on every single accident. It's just, I've heard horror stories going through these classes, and that was my big push to get this stuff out. And that's why we're doing it. I know it's ladder training and all that stuff on Fridays, but we're bringing as many people on the department through as we can because of just that right there. These are myths, true or false. You cannot extinguish a high voltage battery fire with water, lithium ion. True or false? True. You can. False. True. True. False. Bueller? False. False. Absolutely you can. It's the same principle as magnesium fire, magnesium block fire, right, in some vehicles. Just keep putting water in. It's going to spark a little bit, it's going to do its thing at this distance, just keep hosing it with water, it'll go out, okay? Electricity will follow the water stream when putting out a hybrid fire. True or false? False. Why is it false?
Because it's a contained battery. It's not the.
It's grounded within the vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people have come up and go into the course of this class and well, it depends on if you're in a fog stream or a straight stream or this or that or whatever. If this were true, that electricity would follow the stream of water back out to you and electrocute you, you couldn't drive a hybrid electric vehicle in the rain. It's the same principle. It's grounded within itself. You are standing outside on the ground. The vehicle is grounded within itself. Okay. The high voltage battery will explode if it's on fire. True or false?
False.
It's enclosed, but does it have anything in it that would explode? No. Okay. So this myth comes from high voltage batteries, a lithium ion battery. There's no lead in it. There's no content in it that would cause expansion and cause for it to explode. 12-volt batteries, your low voltage batteries, lead acid batteries, they can and will explode under heat because the inside of it, that compound material is expanding and it'll blow. Not a high voltage battery, there's not in there. So again, I kind of answered the next one. High voltage battery pack can leak acid if the cells are ruptured. We just talked about it. There's no acid inside in the cells. You can be shocked if you touch the body of a hybrid and it's been in an accident. True or false? False. Why do you say false, Steve?
Emergency shop inside the main power.
Okay. Main power, there's a circuit within the car, right? So the high voltage side of it, if that cable was sheared, what's going to happen?
Turns off the system.
Turns off the system, right? It's got the safety system built into the cable. So if it was in an accident where the high voltage cables were sheared, it's already going to be shut off due to the safety system. Okay. What was I? If submerged, you can a hybrid can shock you if you're in the water with the vehicle. True or false?
False.
False. Why, Johnny?
Because you said it's grounded within itself, so it's just like the same concept of gravity, right?
Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely. Okay. You cannot cut, move, or touch the orange high voltage wires.
EV1.
Okay. So is that false? I will cut through, move anything high voltage wires every day, twice on Sunday,
It's going to shut.
in the rain, whatever, because the minute there's so many built-in safety systems in these things. It's like GFI in your house. You know, your wife plugs the hairdryer, the curler in, whatever, your electric razor, and all of a sudden it cuts out. It's the same principle in a car. Okay, these things are so heavily regulated, have so many systems in it that it's not going to hurt you. Okay, and when we talk about cutting and moving them and all that stuff, there's a lot of manufacturers that are out there that if you go to their website and get in touch with their, which I've done, you get in touch with their first responder type program and all that stuff, and they'll send you a bunch of videos and documents on how to operate around their vehicle, and they're going to tell you not to crush the ECU, don't crush the rocker panels, don't crush the A-post, all the things that we do to get people out of cars, right? That's all liability driven. Liability driven. The guy who put this program together, and I've been to a couple of his classes, he's actually an electrical engineer for the automotive industry. And when this started getting big, he wanted to make sure that first responders were actually safe and had an understanding of how this stuff works. Because the manufacturers are not going to tell you that you can cut through them. He actually produced a video, I'm going to show it to you here in a few minutes when we're done with this, where he takes a hybrid system and he eliminates every safety factor in it. And then he's going to cut it with a set of cutters, and you're going to cut it with a sawzall. And you'll see what happens when it's energized, no safety features to shut the system off, what it looks like and how it happens. Okay? Are your approach tactics going to vary according to the vehicle type? No. Every vehicle, every single time, whether it's a fender bender all the way to a full-blown extrication. Is it possible to deploy airbags after the ignition is off and the 12-volt battery has been disconnected, the hazard lights are inoperable? Is it possible for the airbag system to go off? It is. Why? How is it? How's it possible?
Just some form of static electricity.
Static electricity. Okay.
Cut the actuator.
Cut the actuator. Okay. So you're talking about the mechanical versus the electrical system.
Are they different?
What's it? Yeah. So an airbag system has there's two systems in an airbag system. You have electrical and mechanical. So the electrical tells the actuator, which is holding the compressed gas, to fire off. Okay, so the electrical system and the mechanical system, they're together. They both have to fire. The electrical system has to fire the actuator, but you can compress the actuator and the gas cylinder itself and create an explosion. So if you're cutting a car and you come across the system, because you're going to pull and peek and look for all the airbags like we talked about earlier, and you see that compressed gas cylinder and you have this much space to cut and it's taken up by a compressed gas cylinder, how are you going to take it out of the equation? How are you going to eliminate that compressed gas cylinder safely? Are you going to take your cutters to it and cut it? You're going to cut the electrical out of it? Is that what you meant by this?
Both sides of it. Take
Both sides of it. Okay, you don't have an option. Let's just say, let's go devil's advocate. You got to go right to the middle of that thing. What are you going to do to get rid of it? The hazard. You're going to take the cutters and cut through it? I hope not, because as you do it, they're not razor sharp. They're not Ginsu knives. It's going to compress it, which is actually increasing the pressure inside of it, which then will give you that response of an explosion. Okay? Grab your sawzall. Take your sawzall, go to the side of it with a sawzall. The sawzall is a slow, steady cut. Once you break through the material, it's going to hiss and all the air is going to come out. Once the air is out of it, it's safe. The electrical side of it, in a car, it has to go through the SRS, the airbag brain, if you will. Okay, the computer that operates the airbags. The electrical side of it. Okay, in that computer, what three components does that computer have to have in order for it to fire the airbag? Okay, well, it's already connected and all that stuff, but just when it's going through its 1/1,000,000th of a millisecond of a thing to do all its computing in an accident, what does it have to have for that airbag to go off? Does it have to be going a certain speed? Impact, right? So you've got to hit a sensor. That's one. Does it have to be going a certain speed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I say generally because all manufacturers are different, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 miles an hour. That's kind of your average. You need to be going over 11 miles an hour. You have to impact a sensor, and what's the third one? Deceleration. So you go on a 962 car versus pole. They center punch the pole. Bam! That pole's all the way back to the cowl of the car. Airbags never deployed. What didn't hit? Didn't hit a sensor. Okay? You go on, let's bring back the Excursion and versus a Honda Civic. Honda Civic sitting at a standstill at a light. The Excursion is 60 miles an hour. He piles through the back of the Honda Civic and destroys the front end of his car. He hits every sensor in the front end of that Excursion, piling through this car, but the airbags never went off. Why not? He didn't decelerate fast enough. Okay, the inertia of his vehicle pushed through the vehicle and it did not slow down fast enough for the airbags to deploy. There's one caveat to the sensors, is G-force. There's a gyroscope in them. So once your vehicle starts to spin or yaw, I'm not a pilot, I think it yaws sideways, side to side. Once it starts to do that, that's part of the sensors, that it will set off your side airbags and all that other stuff. How many cases documented cases in the world of an airbag going off after an accident occurs? Anybody have any idea? No?
No idea.
Can you think of any of them? Anytime you've heard about an airbag going off after an accident, first responders are on scene?
Sometimes
Just one video or so.
One video years ago, Dayton, Ohio? Yeah, where the firefighter goes to the passenger side and gets blown back out the passenger side? Okay, that's Dayton, Ohio. That's one of two actual documented cases where the airbags have gone off after the the accident, the first responders have been there. Okay, they have tried to recreate that event thousands of times with the same vehicle, crushing the ECU, crushing the airbag cylinders, doing everything they possibly could to get that to happen again, and they could not recreate it. 100% could not recreate it. It's kind of a fluke. What they basically did was kind of said that it had to do with the capacitors, because the vehicle that happened in was one of the first generations of airbag vehicles, and it had a capacitor which holds an electrical charge. They think that was just holding on to the charge, and it finally just cut loose. But that's not an official thing. That's just kind of what they came up with, because they couldn't actually nail it down. Again, back to the airbag systems in cars and all that, there is still a capacitor within the system, but it only holds a charge for 30 to 45 seconds after the initial impact and after the initial discharge of an airbag. The reason for that is a secondary impact in an accident. So a car they hit somebody, the cars go veering off, and then they get hit by somebody else, or they hit somebody else. It has the ability to discharge another airbag. So if you say somebody turns left in front of somebody, and they hit the front of the car, their front airbags go off, and they start to veer off into the oncoming traffic, and they get hit in the side of the car, it still has the opportunity to deploy the side airbags. Okay, 30 to 45 seconds. You guys the tones haven't even gone off, right? You're still grabbing another slice of pizza. You don't even know that there's a call coming in by the time that system is shut off. Okay, airbags are intrinsically safe. Again, the safety systems that are built in with them is the same like the high voltage. Again, you disconnect the 12 volt, you get rid of 99% of your problems. The 12 volt is disconnected, the airbag system will not work. That electrical side of it, the brain that operates the airbags, no longer operates. It's out. 12 volts out. It's done. Okay? So once the 12 volt is disconnected, you're eliminating any type of electrical fire of that airbag. So I'm going to show you the video. The reason I show you this video is that he disconnects all the safety systems. But the dude's exceptionally brilliant, and he does this so that you have an understanding of worst case scenario that every single safety system in it doesn't work, doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's going to show you what happens when you actually cut through a high voltage system.
Controlling your name. No, please, I can't be playing with the reason that your fingers only pointing the blame. Hey, now, everything is going your way. Hey, go slow, it sucks me out to sleep. Somewhere in this fallen state, I find the only proof. The weights upon my shoulders make the lines of broken truth. You stop stalling it all. Stop stalling. We can start starting again. We can start starting again. We can start starting again. We can start starting again.
Rolling Rock radio. Rolling Rock.